what's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV, episode 2 of the 9th Ward. Now, today we're going to cover a couple topics of who is an addict, or who are addicts, what are addicts, and how does it affect the people around them. So, who is an addict? An addict is your cousin, your brother, your mother. I've known people that their mothers were actually hooked on different types of pain pills, anti-anxieties like Valium and Xanax and stuff like that. Pretty much an addict is anyone. And nowadays there are many, many functional addicts. Like when you think of a drug addict, you think of this image, and I don't know if I got it from, from what I was taught as a kid, but somebody who's like very down and out, who doesn't take care of themselves, who lives like in the gutter. They're very, dirty. There's no personal hygiene. They don't wash themselves. They don't eat a lot. They're very skinny. Their hair is falling out. Their teeth are falling out, stuff like that. That's not necessarily the case nowadays in 2017. There are many functional drug addicts that look like the average person. Like they don't look any different than the average person. And you would like stand right next to them, they'd have no idea. I was a functional drug addict for 3 years on heroin, which is an extremely hard drug to maintain, or a hard lifestyle to maintain. And many people around me knew something was up, but they didn't really know to the extent. Like years later when I told them it was heroin, they were shocked. They were like, but your hair was clean cut, and your clothes were clean. You were 230 pounds. You were competing as a bodybuilder. I was actually on stage competing in a bodybuilding competition, and my dealer actually met me at the show to make sure that I could be well, with me and my girlfriend at the time, that I could be well so I wouldn't be sick during the competition. Like I was on stage competing. So to think of a drug addict nowadays as compared to whatever it was back, I guess when I was a kid, completely different. Like you're able to hold a job, you're able to continue relationships. Most of the time, if you're in a serious long-term relationship, the person's going to know something is wrong. It's you change, your personality changes, all these type of things happen. But people are very able to hide it very easily nowadays. Now, you could wind up, don't get me wrong, there is a rock bottom that comes that you wind up getting closer and closer to that type of stereotype than you ever really thought. And I know that because before I started heroin, before I started injecting drugs, I took steroids, and steroids are also injectable. So it doesn't, it's almost like a gateway. If you're using steroids, it's not that big of a jump to stick a needle in your arm. But anyways, and they came up with a needle exchange program in Rhode Island where I lived. And it was, they were trying to stop hepatitis, AIDS, HIV. So if you brought one needle, they would give you 2 in return that were brand new. And you'd bring them in, you put them in the sharps container, and it was put on by the hospital, and you get this little card that said you took part in the needle exchange. And at that point, you couldn't be arrested with those needles. And they were all marked, so if you had like 20 needles that weren't from them, you would still be charged with those, and it was a year, or a month or a year in jail for each needle. I mean, the penalties were pretty steep. And I remember standing in line, and me and some of my steroid-using friends would go, and we'd have like 50 needles, in these shoe boxes and stuff we'd have, whereas like the heroin addicts would have like 2 needles in their hands standing in line. And the needles for steroids are very big. They're very big gauge, like 22 gauge, 21 gauge, 23 gauge. The needles for heroin would be maybe a 31 gauge. So like the higher the number, the smaller the needle. And I remember the heroin addict standing in line. He looks at me and he goes, "Man, what kind of high does that get you?" Because he'd never seen like a steroid syringe before. I said, "I don't do dope, man." I said, "I use steroids." And he looks at me, and he had like no teeth, and his hair was like all fucked up. He looked like the Crypt Keeper. And he said, "Steroids?" He's like, "Man, that stuff will kill you. I would never do that." Meanwhile, I'm standing there like completely washed, clean, have money in my pocket, and like I had a job, a girlfriend, and I just took steroids. I competed in bodybuilding. This guy had nothing. It was like poor, living on the streets, and he was looking down on me for using the steroids. But I remember looking at him thinking, wow, that's what a heroin they really do look bad. You know what I mean? They look terrible. Like that's what a heroin addict looks like. That's awful. I would never want to be like that. Fast forward about 6 or 7 years, that's me. However, I didn't look like that. So, I kind of took the stereotype away and realized in my head I wasn't a drug addict. I had fun doing drugs. I enjoyed doing drugs. I didn't have a problem. I would rationalize in my head that I wasn't like that guy because I didn't look like him. I wasn't down and out like him. I still had a place to live. It wasn't that bad. I can handle it. That is what was rationalized in my head. And I know that, sharing this with you guys, That's what goes on in your head until you reach to the point where you're just sick and tired of going through it all, and you say, this is it. You hit your rock bottom, and everybody's rock bottom is different. That guy still hadn't hit his rock bottom. Mine was just literally waking up in the morning knowing I'm either going to jail or I'm going to die. I probably never would have even made it to where that guy is, because I would have been dead before or in jail. So that was, you know, my eye-opening experience as to what is a heroin addict, what is a dope fiend, what is a dope addict. It's your brother, your sister, it's somebody at school, it's a teacher. I mean, it could be anybody nowadays. Now, how does it affect the people around you? Here's what I didn't realize, okay? So there's these shows on TV called Intervention. I believe most of them are filmed actually in Canada. And I can't stop watching these shows, even though they actually really bring these very strange feelings out in me. Every time I see someone stick a needle in their arm, I get like this like chill, like it hurts me. Like it doesn't make me have a craving, it doesn't make me want to do it, it hurts. Like it hurts me watching them do that because I know like what mindset they're in. And to be honest with you, I gave blood a few weeks ago, and I'm scared to give blood. I do not want to give blood. I freak out. I tell them every time, like, look, I'm freaked out. I used to stick needles in my arms all the time. However, it's just not where you're at. After a while, your brain does start to function properly again. And you still have to remember that in the back of your mind, you have a drug dependency that if you feed your body that drug, your brain's going to need it. So even though you don't feel like that heroin addict anymore, that drug addict, it's still there, like lurking under the surface, and it never really goes away. Like you have to be aware of it. So after, you know, I started watching these programs, I realized that my family and my friends had seen an awful lot of bad stuff from me, which hurts. It hurts. It feels awful. That's another thing about being a drug addict is you need to be able to express your feelings and how you feel without bottling them up, because that also can send you on. So when I say something hurts, you know, other people are like, why the fuck? Because that's what I feel. And that's what I'm honest about, and that's what I put out there so that you can actually be honest about what you feel and what you think, so it doesn't have to fester and wind up manifesting itself in a drug addiction again. Now, thinking about my friends, my friend Christina said that she, I had come over her house one night, and I kind of remember it, and I had Nubane with me. I had a little fanny pack thing, Nubane and a needle, and she had no idea what I was into, and I opened the fanny pack, I took out the needle, I put it in the fucking bottle, and I shot myself up on her couch, just talking to her like nothing, and she said, that's when I realized that you were in some trouble. She goes, I'd never seen anybody inject anything in their vein before. She goes, you know, we did ecstasy, and we went to clubs, and, you know, we hung out, we drank, and we just did stupid, you know, party stuff that was really not a big deal. She goes, but when you stuck a needle in your arm, that was it. I said, okay, well, you know, I kind of realized between that and my parents, my dad would come downstairs and, you know, look around. Like, he'd be looking for, like, paraphernalia, leave a needle laying around. You know, he'd be looking to see what I was up to make sure I was still alive, I wasn't fucking around. You know, my friends in general, pretty much, I don't want to say they walked away, but many of them tried to stick around and figure it out. And when they saw me going downhill, they just, you know, my closest friends anyways, kind of just backed off and gave me a lot of room. And, you know, I don't know to this day, you know, I literally, one of the big things when you get clean is to make amends. And I went back to my workout partner from when I was like 17 who, you know, I didn't know if, let's back up for a second. So the reason why I went to make amends all these people, which you're supposed to do anyways, I was a pro wrestler, and I was contacted about maybe 2 or 3 years after I got clean from a promoter who ran a TV show, a wrestling TV show. He said, hey, Jerry, you know, I found this old tape of us. If you want the footage, I'm just going to link it here so you can have it. It's pretty cool. And I said, I don't even know who you are. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, it's not me. He goes, he's like, ha, 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 good joke. Yeah, man, hope all is well. You know, talk to you soon. And there's a link. And I clicked on the link, and sure as shit enough, there I am walking across the screen and sitting down in the chair and doing an interview for this wrestling program. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm listening to myself talk, completely soulless. I had no soul, no personality, nothing, because I was high. And I don't remember it one bit. I don't remember driving there. I don't remember being there. I don't remember doing the interview. I don't remember any of it at all. Zip, zero, zilch. But it's me, and it's plain as day that it's me sitting in the chair. And that's when I realized, I mean, that scared the hell out of me. I was like, holy shit, what else have I done? Like, I don't even know what else I have done that, you know, I don't remember, I don't think about, whatever. Fast forward, I talked to a friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in a very long time. She used to work out at my gym. A very pretty lady. We were always friends. We used to work out together sometimes. And she was on Facebook. So, hey, cool, you know, hey, how are you? How have everything been? This is, I moved down to, you know, Maryland. And she goes, hey, Jerry, how are you? And we're talking back and forth on Messenger. And she says, you seem a lot better. I said, yeah, I am absolutely a lot better. I said, I'm sorry if, you know, I did or said anything offended you. I said, you know, I had some problems and I was, you know, addicted to drugs. And she said, yeah, the last time that we spoke in person, you kept really pressing me on my sex life and saying some really weird, rude things. She goes, I always liked you. You're a nice guy. She goes, and we had a lot of fun and stuff. She goes, but the things you were saying just were out there. And I'm like, I was like, what? I'm like, and now granted, she's hot. You know what I mean? And she's beautiful. And you're in the gym working out with her and stuff. But like, why would I say that? She was married. I had a girlfriend. Why would I do that? It made no sense. I'm like, I am so sorry. I'm like, I don't recall any of this, because when we picked up the conversation, it was like it never happened. And I was like, I don't remember any. I'm so sorry. I apologize over and over again. She just kind of like, blew it off. Like, it's not a problem. I get it. I went to Donnie, my good friend. I said, is there anything I've ever done that upset you or hurt you? And, he was like, no, you're good. You act like a dick sometimes, but no, and my best friend Henry, I went to him, and Christina, I went to her, and I apologized to all of them, and I apologized to my family. And I really realized that, addiction, although you're wrapped up in it and you think everything is going on around you and you have blinders on, right? You're just looking to get your drugs, to be well, and to deal with your situation. And the collateral damage around you hurts a lot of people. And you cannot unring a bell. Once you have done something that hurts someone, you cannot undo it. You can try to make up for it, but that memory's still locked in their brain. So the images of me being messed up, like I remember, this is not heroin, but ketamine. I shot up some ketamine intravenously. I was walking up the stairs to my parents' house and I froze. You go into what's called a K-hole. I froze. And my dad came walking out and he looks at me and I'm frozen on the stairs. Now I can see what's going on, but I can't react. I can't talk. I can't move. I'm frozen. And he's like trying to pull me up the stairs. And he's trying to pick me up, and he's upset. He cannot figure out what is going on. And he's getting more and more visibly upset until the K-hole started to subside and I was able to walk a little bit. But I still couldn't talk. I was a mess. And if you've ever seen anybody in a K-hole, it's a scary thing. It's not going to kill the person. It's not dangerous. However, it is scary to see someone like that if you don't know what is going on. And I remember that. That I remember because it wasn't like an opiate that put me out of my mind. It's like an anesthetic that basically numbs you and puts you in this state of mind where you just don't have any control over your body. Everything just locks up. It's for animals. It's a veterinarian drug. And I think back and I'm like, I can't do anything to make up for what I've done. I can't. I've apologized, and what I have done is try to move on and be the best me that I can be. And those relationships came back around. They were made amends. We started fresh. Everyone around me I started fresh with. It was a new day, but things were just never really the same. You just cannot be the same as you were before after you do these things that upset people and hurt them and disrupt their lives. And, it's a mess. But you can't really concentrate on what other people think about you. So if they decide, no, this is not okay, and no, I can't be your friend, you have to accept that, because that is your responsibility, that you did something that it was your fault. You did this. You'll have to deal with the consequences of your actions. And that's just part of how this whole thing goes. You choose to play, you're going to have to pay. And eventually, if you're playing, you're going to have to pay. There's all there is to it. But this is not about making this a scary thing, because getting clean is scary enough. Getting clean is scary to where, I remember the last day that I ever did drugs when I walked into the ARI. The scariest thing was, what do I do now? Like, my whole day revolved around getting drugs. Like, I have to get a job. I have to fucking be productive in society. I have to really clean up. I have to be a person. Whereas before, I wasn't even being a person. I wasn't being human. I wasn't adulting. I wasn't doing anything. I was being a bratty little kid in an adult body, running around, getting messed up, doing whatever I wanted to do, and it just wasn't right. So now, you're in a spot where it's exciting because you're not going to be ill anymore. It's exciting you don't have to chase the drugs. It's exciting because you're going to have money. You don't have to worry about bills and stuff like that. You can actually start leading a life. But how do you do that if you haven't been doing that? When you're on drugs, if you start taking opiates and drugs at 20 years old, and you're on them until 25, guess what? Your mentality and your emotional state stays at 20 years old. So now you're a 25-year-old with a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old body with a 25-year-old mentality, 25-year-old emotional state, and 20-year-old emotional state, 20-year-old way of looking at things, and 20-year-old way of coping with things and dealing with things in a 25-year-old body. It takes a little while for your personality and brain and emotions to catch up to 25. And sometimes it doesn't happen until a little bit later. So it's a struggle. So you're in for some struggles. So it's not like the struggles end as soon as you get off the dope. Like one set of struggles ends, the next struggle begins. However, the more that you work on that next struggle, the better things get. The more benefit you have from them, the better your life gets. The more things grow for you, the more enjoyment you actually get out of life, but there's still work to be done. So hopefully this guys will give you guys a little insight on who is a drug addict and what it affects around them. And we'll be on to episode 3 soon. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Any questions or comments, email me at biostraining.com, at biostraining@gmail.com. I'm BioStreet and I approve this message. Thank you guys again, and we are out.